this little piece here basically started an entire business. This little prompt formula. It just seemed like this random collection of words with no rhyme or reason. But you'd run it, and then you get something that was like, oh, okay, like I see what's going on here.
Hey everyone, today is the episode that has blown my mind the most this year. We have Rory Flynn on. He is showing us how to rebuild the work of an entire design, creative team, photo shoots, all of that in AI. So that you can get massive scale, you can create assets really quickly for ads, for websites, for really anything. And it is going to blow your mind. Let's get into today's show.
Ever wondered how you can use AI to reduce the amount of money you're spending on ads to acquire more customers? Well, one of the things you can do is have much more creative assets, imagery and video. And we have the person to talk us through that. We have Rory Flynn, who is a master in all things taking AI and using that to create vast amounts of creative assets. And so we're going to walk you through Rory's entire workflow today. So Rory, welcome to Marketing Against the Grain.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. Really excited about this.
You've been grinding away and making stuff for a few years now on this topic, right? And you're going to show us kind of the best of the best. And you're going to show us some of like the most important things you've learned. And so I'd love for you to kind of take us behind the curtain.
This was sort of where it all started right here. This little thought process, which was if we're trying to create photorealistic assets, right? Like that was our main focus, especially on the marketing side. We needed things to look real. Right, like it was cool to make the futuristic like spaceships and stuff like that, but like we needed stuff to put in our emails. So, we started using this type of thinking. It's like, okay, if we want to make a photo, like what is a photo? What actually are the core categories of a photo? And then how can we like what's actually controllable within a photo? So, this basic little structure here was sort of how we looked at it, and it was like, okay, these are also essentially like what I call like the non-negotiables. Like in AI, if you don't prompt for it, it's going to be provided for you anyway. So this is sort of like the core elements, and this doesn't have to be how you prompt every time. You can do more, you can do less. It's just like if you wanted to control the main aspects of an image, like this is what you'd look for, right? So we'd always start with like that shot or photo type, depending on the perspective, where it is, how it's captured, right? So it's like the difference between like a close-up image and a drone shot is like radically different. So again, tells a totally different story. Your subject and your action, like who's in it, what are they doing? Again, like the core idea of the image. You have your environment, where it takes place, the color scheme. There's always going to be colors in an image, of course, even if it's black and white, those are colors, right? This is where we sort of hit pay dirt early on, was this utilizing different cameras and lenses, because like if you use different cameras, you have different visual aesthetics. So depending on what the brand was, sort of like what their vibe was and their visual aesthetic was. The difference between prompting for an iPhone photo and a Polaroid, like it's a totally different visual signature. So being able to control that, look at things like film stock, things of those that nature to sort of like guide the output. The mood and emotion, like that's always been big to us because it was the vibe. Like how do we set the vibe? How do we like sort of bring that out? We need to give it a little bit more energy than what was original, the original like sort of AI idea of that. Lighting, of course, every single image has lighting, whether you like it or not. Like if you didn't have lighting, there'd just be a black image. So like those are like the core sort of things. Again, like it was understanding that this is what's happening in every single image no matter what. So why don't we build structure around that? So when we did that, we sort of started thinking about it like visual building blocks, where it's like, okay, each one of these things makes up the image, right? But if we're going to prompt and we isolate each variable in this equation, which is creating an image, then it's also, from the iteration standpoint, which we all know happens all the time, then if we have, lighting represented in our prompt and we don't like the lighting, we know it's in there, we know what to go change, we can do it quickly, we can iterate faster.
Right. I think if I was the listener, I think this is really cool because what you're going to show is the amount of time and effort you put into actually creating context for the prompt. Like this is all context of what good looks like. And is your background photography, or did you use AI in of itself to actually craft these building blocks? Like how did you know these are the most important parts of a photo?
Definitely a lot of trial and error in the beginning. I have a graphic design background, so I have like probably half of the technical knowledge of a photographer. I didn't know what each specific lens did or what a focal length was prior to AI, but it like forced learning, because then I was like, oh, I know how this looks from looking at it all the time and working with it as a designer. Just didn't know like what the term was for it. Starting to understand what like bokeh was or things like that. I'm like, okay, now I know what this is. I've been looking at it my whole life, basically,
Right.
but didn't know that there was a term for it. So
Makes sense because you can also, your interest goes up when you can like do real things much quicker.
I think that's what sort of got me early on. It wasn't just I was interested in the business. I was like interested for myself. Like I use it as like a decompression sort of thing early on. Just let me dump all of my day's frustrations into an image generator and like let's just create, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just it felt very therapeutic early on. Like this is fun. Like I'm just like, you know, I'm not doom scrolling on Twitter. I'm like building little worlds in Midjourney and like having a lot of fun with it. So
What you're really telling people is like, whatever you're going to, in this case, images, it could be anything. You got to like understand how it works, reverse engineer it, get the building blocks right, because you need to know what variables you can control, because the variables
Correct.
you can control are the things that are ultimately leading to the output and whether you're getting what you're trying to make or not.
this sort of thinking right here, this will work for video. This will work for music. This will work for, you know, a system prompt. This will work for anything. It's just like what needs to be present and what can be controlled. And then from there, you know, even if you're asking an LLM to do this for you, it doesn't have to be like off the top of your head. You know, you can start of like build the core building blocks and then roll from there. Because once you have these, then everything becomes a lot easier.
What's funny, in that slide you were just on, literally somebody watching on YouTube could have just screenshotted that slide, screenshot it, and then had some image and put it in ChatGPT or anything and say, hey, tell me what the building blocks are for this image, and learn that way. And it'd be and it will, like, within 5 or 10 minutes, you would have a pretty good understanding of what this all actually means and how it works.
100%. I think that's the best part of it, right? Because it's relatively simple once you have the formula.
Correct.
It's just getting the formula, right? Because
I love that.
that's the hard part. Because that's what we did was like, oh, okay, if we have the building blocks, right? Now we can build a prompt formula, which becomes essentially like Mad Libs for, you know, using AI. Like I don't have to. I can fill this in myself, or I can ask at the time ChatGPT to do it for the team who might have not had as much experience in the design field or in the photography field, like people that just wanted to create as well. So basically just took those building blocks, threw them into a prompt formula, separated them by commas, and let it run from there. Because it was like, all right, well, if this is like the operating structure and AI, you know, if we were using ChatGPT at the time, could help us fill this in, we could also ask for 10 prompts. We could have asked for 50 prompts for it to just fill in the blanks. So it was like, okay, we can start to scale this now. So this little piece here basically started an entire business. This little prompt formula, which is kind of crazy that it was that, you know, at the time I wasn't looking at it like it was that important, but you know, I see how much I use it now in just about everything. It's obviously updated and been tweaked and manipulated a million times, but this is sort of like the distilled version. Like I also like to think about this as like prompting for, especially for images, it doesn't always have to be first shot stuff. Like I like to give, like if you see the prompt down here below, like I like to give the condensed version. So I don't want to go overboard and write these like 5-paragraph prompts, because isolating what's wrong majority of the time in troubleshooting is way harder than you think. Because it's just like one little word here could screw the whole thing up out of 3 paragraphs. So like give it the condensed version, you know, which is like, you know, if you're boil a pot of water like all the way down to the bottom, like that's what I want to give it first, and then I'll keep adding water to it to sort of like, you know, make it fit.
I think that's a really important point that you're being start simple and add versus starting complex and taking away.
Because that's, again, back then too, it was you were not getting the type of hit rate that you are now, which is everything is a lot closer to getting it like 100% on that first shot. Back then it was slot machine, like, oh, maybe we'll get it. And you know, the thing was, like, you'd throw in these prompts like motorsport photography, Red Bull 1 F1 car on a racetrack. You have the color schemes here. You'd have the warm tones, the 35 millimeter shallow depth of field, dramatic sunset backlighting, center framing, motion blur, which just seemed like this random collection of words with no rhyme or reason, right? But you'd run it, and then you get something that was like, oh, okay, like this is actually listening, and you realize that you have, you know, motorsport photo,
cool.
race, you know, racetrack, like that's represented. Right, warm tones. You have that yellow orange hue. You obviously have the car driving. You get the radial blur on the tires. It's moving. You can tell that. You have the blue, red, and yellow, obviously represented. 35 millimeter shallow depth of field. If you're not familiar with that, it's like basically a wider angle storytelling lens, but shallow depth of field is like portrait mode on your iPhone. So you have the subject in focus in the foreground and the background blurred. Center framing, right? We have our motion blur in the background. You can see the stuff's moving from left to right. And then we have sunset, and then we have backlight, which means it's behind the subject. So, like, seemingly just random words, but you have control. It's like we controlled the non-negotiables, so it listened to us, and then we can build upon this if we wanted to. Like, now we know that it listens, right? Now we can go iterate it. So some of this stuff, it was like, this was sort of super, super helpful, because then the team could be like, oh, okay, I see how this stuff works, and then it's easy to iterate. But there's so much more stuff like that. It's kind of crazy at the end of the day when you start going with it.
Well, one quick question before we get into some of the other things you're going to show. Well, I'm curious, right? So that actual prompt took you a long time to figure out and refine, I assume, right? That is kind of like your USP, right? That's like a USP that kind of drives a big part of your business. How do you think about giving prompts away? Like, you give that, like, if I was watching this, I've got a huge amount of value now because I could just clip your prompt, and now I'm kind of as good as whatever version of you was when you were doing that prompt. I'm sure you have like more sophisticated ones now, but I, shortcut my learning pretty rapidly, because it's not the same as like when you create an ebook to teach someone how to do imagery. They have to like still consume the ebook. They have to like learn those skills, and they have to get better at that craft. Now, prompts, I can literally basically take your skill. It's like I always loved like the Matrix, where he's like, I want to learn how to fly the helicopter. It goes, and he just like learned to fly the helicopter. Like, prompting's quite similar in that I can be as good as you where you were then by just taking your prompts. So how do you feel about that? Because I think about that a lot in terms of some of the prompts that I've given away.
Yeah, I'm honestly like, I sort of have like a very open nature about this. I feel like everyone should be learning this. I feel like everyone should be on board. I feel like a sense of responsibility also, which sounds weird, to like, especially to my audience who've been following me for a long time. And I feel like I have to give a lot, because look, I was, as a graphic designer, like, I was replaced by Fiverr. Like that was
right.
I felt this before. Like, once Fiverr came along and I was no longer necessary because I could not compete with Fiverr. I was not mad at the people that worked at Fiverr. I was mad at the people who were making decisions, just going with the cheap option because that's just the cheap option, right? Maybe I wasn't that good. That could be my stance. That could be my fault as well. But I feel like a lot of people are feeling that same way right now. They're feeling that same sort of like burden of like, this is coming and like I might not be needed. So I feel like if we can get everyone at least to a good level of understanding of how to do this, then they can be sort of, I don't want to say irreplaceable, but they're valuable. Valuable to a company, valuable to themselves. They can go and build something if they want to. Like, I seemingly just dreamed up out of nowhere. But like, that's sort of how I want to help. It sounds cheesy, but I really do, because I feel like everyone is overly stressed about this. And if we can alleviate and make people see the Matrix, like when Neo actually sees it for the first time, like, I love getting people to that moment. Once they get there, I know they're fine. It's just like you have to get to that moment of like, oh, I see what's going on here.
If you all want what Rory has showed on today's show, the prompts, the workflows, we've got all that together for you. You can click the link in the description below and you can go get that.
He's giving you his exact workflows. You give AI one brief, it spits out 100 assets. Social posts, email copy, blog drafts, you name it.
So if you want all this, guys, you can scan the QR code or you can click the link in the description below.
Okay, it sounds like you've kind of progressed onto some other workflows.
Weavy now is like my playground, right? Like, Weavy's taking that sort of idea and then blowing it out. It's like, how do we take that idea of like, oh, now we have a formula, and then how do we blow it into a number of different sort of realms, and how do we sort of create the multiverse? Because I think that's the place that we're at now, which is really interesting to me. I say this a lot, that an image isn't just an image anymore. Like, an image to me is like the foundation of AI, and that's my own opinion. But like, an image can now become a video. An image can now become a 3D asset. An image can become a piece of text. It can become code. It can become a GIF. It's sort of like branching, right? Like, you can go into a video, extract a frame, and then take that in a million different directions. It's all sort of like this now infinite branching of reality, which can be overwhelming. So it's kind of hard to, you gotta like narrow it down a little bit every once in a while. But the Weavy stuff was really, really important. So I'll show you one workflow to start, which is where basically, again, like solving common problems. Like we know, I know a lot of people in the e-commerce industry, especially in the fast fashion space, right? Like they have, constant turnover of product. But a lot of times to get that product photographed, uploaded into the website, live and ready to go is not easy because it's expensive. And if you're doing that with 4,000 SKUs, like it's not necessarily the most time efficient process if it's only going to be live for a season or a couple months. So it's something that we did early on. This was like sort of like the test case to be like, oh, does this get us somewhere? Does this get us into a place of like, okay, like we can start to solve problems like this, which met with a lot of good response. So it was something that we started to build upon. Like this was the building block for everything else. So this was sort of like the origin of it, where it was like, okay, we can take a way to sort of art direct your model, control your clothing, put them together, and then iterate the photo shoot, right? So this was a very, at the time, like simple, not simple, I wouldn't say simple. This was just like a easy way to show it. As there's probably definitely a more efficient way that we've sort of reverse engineered from this, but it was sort of the building blocks, right? So this thing looks really crazy, and it's not necessarily that crazy when you get into it because it's just duplicated stuff. But if I was going to show you what was going on here, this is basically modular prompting.
People who are not maybe marketing dorks or AI dorks, what you have here is essentially you're using Weavy to build a workflow. You've got some workflows here, but that workflow is basically to replicate a traditional physical photo shoot using AI. Yes. And it's trying to solve that exact problem you were saying just a few minutes ago. It's like, how do you shoot 4,000 items in a cost-effective way that looks good for those items that are only going to be on a website for like 90 days? And that becomes really painful. And you were like, oh, there has to be a better way. And so you built this as kind of a foundational workflow. And you're doing this for shorts, but you could wear clothing or shoes or whatever, but you could do it for literally anything. It's just like, This is a workflow to replicate a photo shoot. If you were going to do a photo shoot for something, you could then now replace that photo shoot with AI. Now you're going to walk us through, I think, a little bit of like the building blocks of the workflow.
Totally. That's a great way to sum it up. That's exactly the thought process behind it. So, like, again, this looks super confusing with all the spaghetti strings, but when you put it together, this is really just modular prompting. So it's using essentially sort of the same building blocks that we talked about here, our photo type, our shot type, we have our gender, perspective, age, ethnicity, body types. So we're doing almost like a video game style, like create a character, right? Where we're running it into this thing called a concatenator, which will just combine all these pieces together and then use that as a prompt to generate the image, which is cool now because we can also take our clothing that we want to upload into here so that he's wearing it every time. We have a system prompt here, which if anyone's not familiar with system prompts, it's like the prompt that guides a custom GPT. So it works in the background, but it basically says do this every time. It's like custom instructions. So this one's not even that crazy. It's just describe each article of clothing essentially. So we have it in text and visual form as well to help sort of provide it. Now this was done before the nano banana, the flux context craze, the seed dream, everything like that. So had to be a little bit more intentional with what we were doing. The foundations still work, which is why I want to show it because sometimes it's the best way to get it when you're troubleshooting. But basically describe each item of clothes. We then connect it all.
Can I just touch on that to kind of walk our users through what's happening? So the first workflow you showed us through allows you to create the quote unquote model you would usually have. And then the one below that is I assume you're dynamically, like wherever you use this workflow, you're giving it a bunch of imagery, and because you're going to take that imagery and use it in another prompt, you need a system prompt to convert each image into a text-based description that you can then like feed into like a master prompt that's going to like combine the model with the clothing.
Correct. That's 100% correct. That's a way better way of describing.
That's a great. I actually didn't even understand it that way, Kieran. That was a really good summary. That was awesome.
That's perfect. Yes. So we're using like LLMs here. On Weavy, you have the option to do, basically use any of the ones that are available between Claude, Gemini, Llama. But it's just a great way to utilize this instead of me describing it via text. It's just giving it a same idea like a system prompt. Just describe this stuff, and we'll use this one over and over again. So it's we run that to combine it, which is the prompt of the model and then the prompt of the close plus the image of the model and the images of the close, and we put them all into. In this case, it was ChatGPT. Again, this is built like about 5 months ago, so it's just the core idea is what works here, because I'll show you on the next one sort of how that expanded from here. So it was like, okay, we have our one image, we upscale it, so now we have our shirt, our shorts, our shoes. It's
pretty cool.
Local, yeah, and then. That's how we started to build batch. It was like, okay, once we have this, it's the one image. Again, like once you have, one prompt equals 1,000, one image equals 1,000, same thing. We'd branch it into the realities. Like this one is like a building block of batch processing here. What we're doing is essentially we're creating a prompt saying, describe 6 different camera angles for this model, focusing on creating a 360-degree view. We give it the idea of the perspectives. We want a front view, side profile facing left, side profile right, 3/4 angle, etc. Make sure it's a full body shot. We want head and feet, and keeping the environment exactly the same with, let's keep these prompts shorter than 30 words and separate them with a star. This is like the whole batch processing thing. So the goal here is to take this, create 6 more prompts so they come out in one single output from an LLM. This might sound confusing. I'm going to try to keep it simple. But the reason we want to have it end with a star is so we can use this thing called array, which will split every prompt by the star. So every time you see a star in here, that means, separate, new prompt, right? So then we're able to split them out, and then we can run them to these different list selector views. So it's basically each individual one is a prompt, right? Each individual one is a prompt, and then we can go run them simultaneously. So
you know what's hilarious about this? I have a couple of friends actually who are in the they are like real photographers and go and do fashion shoots. And I suspect if I had told them like a year ago, I think the core skill you're going to need to really learn is like you're going to really understand automation, arrays, technical.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? That's nothing to do with me. I'm like doing all the art. And you're like, splitting these into arrays so I can use them and auto create different camera shots. It really is an example of like how every single field, because of AI, becomes so technical. Like it's like it's like art, but there's a lot of science, right? There's a lot of science integrated in all of this.
It's a weird blend. Like I kind of love it, where you can be creative but technical at the same time, which, I think there's probably limited fields and where you can do that. But it's like foundationally, then trying to teach something like this, right? So this is, once you get like, this is like an engine, right? Like this is basically like a batch processing engine. So like this will work. You just change the prompt, right? Like then I just duplicate that 3 times and just change what I'm asking for in the prompt, which is like, I want lower half shots closer up. I want, I want like, more action poses, or I want more lower half shots, or this one might be I want him like in action doing something, walking, not looking at the camera, more like B-roll style. So, this overall is cool, but like people don't want to look at that most of the time. So having these outputs here, which is great, just attaching an output. So it's telling the system that I want to make this sort of like an app, right? Like we can make this an app where we're putting in like the actual description of the model. We do the description of the close, and then we push enter, and then
it's kind of mind blowing.
It all comes out at once.
Oh my god! Like every single retail company who does these kind of large, like ASOS and all these that do all these large amounts of photography for every single piece of clothing they have. I mean, like their world is just sizably different.
And hardly any of them are doing it right now.
No.
Right?
This is like the watered down version of what that is, because that's obviously so much more quality control than is here. This is just a sort of like an example piece of like taking and run with it. If I'm, like I said, if I'm giving people stuff, like please go ahead and use this. I'll definitely share these workflows with everyone. Hopefully if you guys drop it in the comments.
Yeah,
section
we'll put it all in the comments and everything so that they can find you and find these.
So like that kind of workflow was generate the model, generate the clothes, and then you use this batching process to generate that person doing different actions and different shots of the clothes on the body. That person is like all AI generated, right? Like you haven't uploaded a photo of a model.
No.
That's been created, yeah.
Controlling the character, right? Like creating the character. Clothes is the only thing that might exist in this.
Yeah.
So,
that's the only non-AI generated thing is the clothing that you're trying to, demonstrate basically.
Have you done anything like this with video? Because the tool I am obsessed with right now, and I'm trying to build out some cool stuff, is VO3.
Yeah.
Now, you still have to keep character consistency across 8-second clips, which you can do using Flow. But I'm wondering, can you give us a quick demo of anything you've done video-wise?
Video-wise, so this is a lot of this stuff. What I'm doing here is precursor to video. So all of these, and I would take this essentially, these stills, and then I would use them as keyframes. So as a way for us to, as a little tip for anyone who's doing fashion stuff, right? When you have like a shot like this, up top, and you want to scroll down to the bottom here, or if you were just to say like, go down to this guy's shoes, right? Like, camera travels down to his shoes. Problem is, like, you're not gonna translate the logo on the pants or the shoes because it doesn't have any sort of context of that. So you'd want to go from like keyframes, which is start here, end here. Tools like Kling, Luma, Runway, I believe, has them as well. Like, you want to go here, this image, to here, so that you get the shirt, you get the branding on the shirt, you get the branding on the shorts, and you get the branding on the shoes, right? So that's sort of like the idea. But if I was actually to pull one of these up,
so just to quickly say something, because I think you've taught me something here as well. So you're actually using the video tool. You actually create an imagery first and then the video tools to actually animate those images. Is that what you're doing? Whereas I'm actually just trying to create everything in the video tools. I'm not creating the images first. Should I create images first?
For control purposes. I think for only if you like really need precision.
Okay.
Like, I think text to video is more capable than image to video in that case, but when you're looking at precision and you need to have like all these fine details that are exact across all of the the images. Again, on the brand side, you work with a lot of these companies. It's it's very nitpicked, of course, especially because it's AI. So to me, it's like I can control if I can control the images, I can control the video.
Got it.
That's sort of how I look at everything. But I do love text to video as an option for just about everything.
And just as a quick aside, because I want you to show us like how you get the files and everything else that you were about to go into, you can do this for literally anything. What blows my mind, if I was like a startup, we have a lot of startup founders and everything watching this. Like if I was into design and UX, I would just upload my product design language, any competitor's design language, all of those things that you could literally have a workflow where you could put a feature idea in and see it in every possible design style and user experience exceptionally quickly, in minutes.
Very quick. And with
it's
tools
insane.
like Nano Banana, it's like I don't know, a 15-second gen time. Like it takes nothing. So
crazy.
It's super quick, but stuff blows my mind because it's also endless. Like this is where I have to focus myself because I could just keep going here. I was like, why not have 75 other replications of this and do one click 800 images? It's like, all right, like reel yourself in, Rory, because this is sort of where it gets refined, right? If I look into something more like on the product ads or like product image shot side of things where I'm using a product to get to an end result here. Naturally, of course, if you're going to generate,
you're taking these are ad creative. It looks like, right?
Yeah. So this is more.
This is like a big use case, I think, for most companies, regardless of what your company is.
Exactly. So again, you'll notice a lot of the same sort of theory here. The batch processing engine. We're not doing that much different. We're basically attaching an image, which is you input an image. We're attaching a user prompt, which is just saying kind of what you want. We have custom instructions here, which is basically like your system prompt for any of your chat or your prompt generators on like your custom GPTs. But really the idea here is to focus on, like, I want to be able to produce, again, 10 prompts.
Yes.
And I want them to be very specifically formatted, and I want them to go directly to the image generators without stopping. So this can all be one click. And then the other piece here that we've started to add a lot more, which is the visual brand profile, right? So taking about 20 images and dumping them into ChatGPT or any of your LLM of choice, and asking to extract like a visual brand profile, so we have like a style guide for each image generator, right? So we're using the custom instructions, which are the basic rules, saying like this is how you create, this is how to format, this is how to output. We have our visual brand profile, which is saying this is how it should all look. We're you're combining that as a system prompt, and then that's being met with this sounds so much more confusing than it is, I promise, to anyone who's listening. That meets with your prompt and the picture of your image, right? And then it goes and splits, and then we can run these to any sort of different variation of this. There's, I've run millions of them here. So it's like anything here can work, and we're doing it. Again, we've done it 1 for 10. We just split it and do 10 more. This can be 40, 100,
Scales
1,000. Because when I open here, it's like you see like everything that's getting created. And this stuff takes me like 20 minutes. Like I ran.
Yeah, you're literally making thousands of ads in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
right.
And it's curating. It's curating versus creating at this point. The curation portion is going into the system prompt and the actual building of the tool. And then like that's the creative piece to me at this point. This is now, how do I run this at scale and just like get to a place where I'm looking through all of this and being like, oh, I like this one, or I like this one, or I like.
Have you built an agent
one
yet that ranks and like basically gives you the best revs?
That's the next piece. Is the cure? We keep creating newer problems, right? It's like,
exactly. That's why I was asking.
Scale.
We're less than an hour in, and you've showed us a use case that basically has built a entire photography business and a whole creative design business through like a single tool and a bunch of prompts, just so people understand what's happening here. Like, this is a creative design agency. You would have to pay a friggin' fortune to get a creative design agency to come back with this amount of. Usually you get like, you pay them thousands and thousands, you get like 3 choices. Yeah, you want to pick A,
and
B,
the
or C,
output's good.
Like, and you're like, hey, do you want to pick any of these 1,000 images?
Yeah, it's just creating custom libraries, right? Like, and this is sort of like, even the crazy thing about these tools, right? This is, some of this stuff blows my mind, where even as the user prompt, I'm saying dumb things. Like, this is where I like to have fun, where I'm saying dumb things like, give me a lo-fi meme. And like, it's coming up with something like this, like all hail the candy. Like, this is so stupid, but awesome at the same time.
But that'll work.
Yeah. This was genius. This was lo-fi meme, right? It's like busy office at, I didn't do anything here like that. And I hate to say that, but it's just, I put so much work into that system prompt that now when I use a user prompt, it's just like, whoa, okay. Because there's some smart stuff that it does also. If I could find probably can't find it on super short notice, but there's a bunch of, oh, here we go. Like these memes that I was asking it to make. Like, this is smart. Just asking it by saying to make me lo-fi meme, athletic greens, this is my personality now. No prompting of that. Just came up with it. Self-care mode with a bottle. Putting it's so absurd.
Good. It's
right.
Really
like,
good.
I want to get in here and build paid advertising imagery for direct response, because these are all like really great brand ads for B2C. But in B2B, like, what's really weird about B2B is the worse quality the image, the better it performs. I would love to just like take some.
Would you like to see this? Exactly. Like, my campaigns are so good, your spam folder wants an autograph, right? Like, these are we prompted in here, like, give me like a used car salesman vibe. This is my old business partner Phil, still play around a lot together with this stuff. So it's, how do we had a winning ad for B2B in the email marketing services, that was basically, we called him the King of Clavia. We put him on the Game of Thrones throne, right? And like, that was it, and that sold us clients for months. We got clients like in it was insane actually how many people responded to that. So we're like, let's just replicate and do the dumbest stuff we could possibly imagine and see what works again. So this stuff is pretty funny in regards to, you know, respect the CTR king. Like these are just taking the one image of him and running it through saying, give me a meme. So, you know, to the B2B side, you can also do really weird stuff that sometimes catches the eye.
I love it. I do like it. Just like Kipp and I. By the way, Kipp and I are like WhatsApping frantically about to tell the shit we want to do with this. I think the big takeaway, like part of the big takeaway is, you know, in companies you have these creative teams who own all the kind of creative asset generation. But this to me means that actually teams who are reliant on imagery should be self-sufficient.
100%.
Right? Like there's no reason that you kind of have to have different teams who are skilled. You should have people who can just use these tools. Wherever they use images, they should just have a seat, a license, and figure out how to use these tools. And I hadn't really thought about that before until I've seen how much you are able to do. And like, now you have to master, foundational elements, but how much you're able to do when you actually really understand how to do prompting and workflows.
We should do a follow-up episode to this, Kieran. I don't know if it's a Rory or if it's who, but it's like, in 2024, the average paid marketer or paid marketing team spent their time this way, and now they need to spend their time in this very different way. Like how you spend time on asset creation, segmentation, data, reporting has changed dramatically. And the number of campaigns, essentially we're saying is like at least 10x.
Oh,
right.
Easy.
I guess that's a question for you, Rory, before we go. It's like you're working with this technology. You're scaling up a bunch of creative. Like, what has been the delta in terms of like number of campaign and amount of creative before doing this to like now? How big is that difference?
We've just created more work for ourselves, to be honest.
Well,
like,
of course, that's what I'm asking.
It's like, I think there was this crazy promise of AI as if it's going to get rid of a lot of the work. It's like, no, we're still going to fill the time. We're just going to do more with the time, right? So I haven't, from a standpoint of being able to test, it's been a lot more effective, because if you just look at like the way the game is played a little bit more now, it always evolves and changes, right? Like what works right now in the performance space won't work in, you know, a year. But it's like, if we have more that we can test, that means we can optimize better, which means we can find winners better, which means we can iterate better, right? Like it all sort of feeds itself. It's just having optionality and having freedom. Whereas if to make that library that I just showed you on Figma, that would have taken graphic design. That would have taken me a year maybe to create all of those.
Totally.
I'm not even kidding.
No.
And it's 20 minutes now. So I don't always want to be like, it's the time. It's like the fact that it's also a little bit intuitive when you put some intuitive back end into it, that, you know, again, not everyone can just go and build that thing in 5 minutes. That took me 3 weeks to build that tool. Yeah. But that tool, you know, after 3 weeks, it's just basically, did I get the system prompt right? And like once the system prompt is right, it's like you strike gold, and then it's like you just hit go and it works. So
yeah,
it's all taxed
design
up
team.
front.
Took me 3 weeks to build a creative design team.
Yeah.
I'd take that.
Anybody in the world would take that.
3 weeks of trial and error and working backwards. And that's one thing I can, you know, definitely impart onto people here if they're interested in building workflows like this. The idea doesn't like start unless you go from the end. So you have to be able to get good output first. You have to be able to get, this is how the output should look. Used.
Yeah.
How do I get that prompt 50 times?
Yeah.
Right?
That's
what do
a
I
great
need
tip.
to write a system prompt to get that prompt 50 times? What do I need to input? So it's like total reverse of how you probably think about it. So
that's a great tip. So start with the outcome and then reverse engineer into scale.
It's the only way to do it.
It's as a pro tip. And so you're using Weavy, and then you're basically exporting these images and then running ad tests and doing everything in Meta or any of the core platforms, right? Just so that everybody understands kind of the end-to-end flow as we close out here is what I'm trying to make sure.
Yeah, so I'm not running any ads. I'm teaching businesses how to create this stuff so they can do whatever the hell they want with it, right? That's my, it's like, take it, here's even like, you know, here's like the stock car that I just gave you, go build upon it too, like change it up, make it different, build, you know, put the performance tuners on it if you want to. So it's basically like, here's like get off the finish line or get off the start line and move. But yes, that is the idea, is to just sort of eliminate a lot of that work. And I hate to say eliminate, because I still think the photography is the most important thing to anybody. Like, I wouldn't say go get rid of your photographers and your creative team. I would say this is a supplement. Like this is a way to test direction and then get things done professionally if you have the means to. Keep building out, or to be like, this is our entire look and feel now. Like, you can reshape a brand by testing and tell like audience response. So it's just so many different ways to go about and use it. Just I try not to tell people to be like thinking about it as I need to get rid of people because I have this. It's like
No, it's not about that.
It's kind of like code, right? The vibe coding means it's easier to create more code than ever, but it just means there's an unlimited want for more code, and so it just allows people to create more software. I'm sure there's an unlimited want in the world for great creative assets, but historically the only people who could get them is people who could afford to do that through creative design agencies or photographers, and now like it kind of democratizes the ability for everyone to get that. So the people who might use it may never have used a photographer or a creative design studio anyway because they couldn't afford it.
Sure.
And I think that's what's happening is like there's pent up demand for this stuff, and now everyone can kind of get access to it, and just kind of we can end where we started, which is create, right? I think this is an incredible time to be a craftsperson.
Absolutely. It's just like, do it. You'll figure something out that you like or some useful way to use it. Image,
go build.
text, whatever.
There's a bunch of tools. Rory, you've taught us that an image can be a core building block for lots of things: text, video, different types of imagery, ads, and that's like a core takeaway here. But you have to have proficiency in reverse engineering things and have a tool or a set of tools that you can then play around with and build and test assets on. And you've walked us through and given us some baseline workflows and examples, and I think you're going to share those so everybody can go and get started right away, which is awesome.
100%.
Rory, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today. We'll talk to you all real soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
This data is wrong every freaking time.
Have you heard of HubSpot? HubSpot is a CRM platform where everything is fully integrated.
Whoa, I can see the client's whole history: calls, support tickets, emails, and here's a task from 3 days ago I totally missed.
HubSpot. Grow better.